But for some reason, I was in the mood to talk. I was anxious to get back over here, and I was in the mood to talk, and I sat down by this lady, and the poor thing just really wanted to be quiet. But it just wasn't going to happen for her that day. You know, you ever want to strike up how many of you are talkers on the plane? Raise your hand. A couple of you, huh? You like, there's no such thing as a stranger to you, huh? You just go, oh, hi, where are you going? Do you live here? Huh? Well, I started that whole thing up. Do you live here? And she said, yeah, I live on Kauai. Oh, born and raised? Yeah. What part? On the west side. Really? Over on the west side. Well, do you know? And I start that thing in order, and it took me like 8 people to find a connection, and finally I found a connection with somebody, and so I got my point in there, and by that time she knew that, you know, we're done, you know, she's going to have to talk to me, so she put her stuff down and turned and started, you know, talking with me. And then she made the mistake as we were getting in, and I told her who I was, and then she said, oh yeah, times are a little hard right now. Wah, bing! So that's all I needed for my entrance. And I launched into, because it was a Sunday, I was flying home on a Sunday. And I asked her, I said, did you go to church this morning? And she said, no, I didn't make it to church this morning. I'm just coming back. I said, well, no worries, I'm a pastor. Here we go. And I'm not exaggerating either. I really said that. And I said, you know, and I launched into the whole story of Joseph. I said, you know about Joseph in prison and stuff? And I was telling him, I said, you know, one of the things I love about God so much is that He's redemptive. Everybody say redemptive. Redemptive. He turns around what looks really horrible into something quite amazing. Isn't that good news?
Yes.
And we can't always see it in the beginning. So we got to have church in, you know, aisle 15A and B right there. We had a nice service and parted our ways. And I was thinking about that. And I was thinking about that this week, getting ready for this message called A Fresh Start. The redemptive aspect of who God is. It's one of the greatest things I love. There's a lot of things I love about God. I love that He's faithful. Yeah.
Amen.
I love grace. How many of you are in love with grace? But I love that He's redemptive. One of the ways, and I've shared this before, I think it's been a while, but those of you who know me closely, you know that I was raised up in my dad and we did not have a good relationship, unfortunately. We did when we were very little. But when he was about 30 or 31 years old, my mom was getting really excited about God. And she was getting turned on for God and going through all these Bible studies. And she was bringing him to church. Some of you wives know what I'm talking about. She was getting fired up and bringing her husband, and he was coming along, keep peace in the home. But he really got excited about it. He started teaching Sunday school class and doing some things, and there's Bible studies in our home, but he had a situation with alcohol. He's just a good old boy, right? So he was just a, beer drinking dude, during his 20s and after work. I think here it's Pauhana, right? And the mainland is just, poor Hana, poor. So they just did that, but then when he started getting excited about God, he thought, I probably shouldn't do so much of this anymore. And he made a statement saying, I'm going to quit. No more alcohol in the home. And because he didn't see it going along with Christianity, I'll be honest, I don't think that, Christians can't drink beer. I think you just don't want anything to control you. If Christians can't drink beer, then I ain't a Christian. So you just don't have to get drunk. You don't have to let it bring you to a place where you're out of control. Somebody say amen.
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 If you can enjoy some good hops every now and then, more power to you. All right, I feel very alone up here right now. All right, good. I know some of you. So, where was I? Anyways, he couldn't keep up this thing, and he began to hide his alcohol. And it went from just being a beer guy to he was during his 30s and into his 40s, drinking a fifth a day of vodka, at least a fifth a day. And he was traveling a lot, and so he could hide it very well. And then when he'd come home, and it was always kind of like I had these two dads, the one who was really cool and the other one who was, who are you? And yet we didn't know he was, drinking. But he had a huge addiction. And it darn near ruined his marriage. It contributed to his relationship with me because I was kind of a nut and I was into all kinds of trouble growing up. And so he didn't know how to handle that, and he'd drink more and I'd rebel more. And so alcohol really had a place in his life that caused him to behave in certain ways and not be able to handle certain things, to where it hurt. It damaged a lot of things in life. And many of us have experienced that ourselves or in the lives of other people, right? But here's the beautiful part.